Welcome to Kush News, the newscast of the African diaspora. I'm your anchor, Ochanda, weekly bringing you the top stories from Africa and the Caribbean. Let's take a look at the news of the week of September 29th, 2024. We go to the United Nations, where this week African heads of state were at the UN General Assembly and gave key speeches. Let's go ahead and listen in on some of the key speeches by your African leaders.
The promise of the United Nations Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war has been profoundly shaken. From land to sea, and from air to the outer space, global peace, security, and stability are increasingly under threat. Conflicts and tensions pervade every frontier, undermining the collective security that international cooperation seeks to uphold. Cases of polarizing narratives, factionalism, social upheavals, organized crime, war, and stockpiling of weapons of mass destruction are at an all-time high. Great power rivalry is intensifying, provoking regional competition and inducing geopolitical and geoeconomic realignments and tensions. The subtle nuances of them versus us has produced negative coalitions, wars, tensions, as well as eroded trust and confidence in global multilateral system. From Gaza to Darfur, Ukraine, Yemen, Eastern DRC, the Sudan, the Sahel, and the criminality in Haiti, conflict is inflicting a trail of destruction of life and livelihoods in historic proportions.
It has been 11 months since the Hamas attack that killed 1,200 people and where hostages were taken. As South Africa, we have condemned this attack. In response, Israel embarked on an act of collective punishment in its assault on the people of Gaza. The torment of the people of Gaza continues unabated. More than 41,000 Palestinians have been killed. Homes, hospitals, churches, mosques, and schools lie destroyed. Famine and disease stalk the streets of Gaza. This cannot but shock our collective humanity. The violence the Palestinian people are being subjected to is a grim continuation of more than half a century of apartheid that has been perpetrated against Palestinians by Israel. We South Africans know what apartheid looks like. We lived through apartheid. We suffered and died under apartheid. We will not remain silent and watch as apartheid is perpetrated against others.
This year's theme calls on us to act together to advance peace, sustainable development, and dignity. This is a call to stronger multilateral cooperation. But if we are serious about cooperation, then we must act with urgency in fixing and reforming the United Nations and other multilateral institutions. And one fix that we from Africa demand is for the United Nations to embrace democracy in the Security Council by giving 2 permanent seats to Africa with veto power. When I first made this call in my inaugural address in this chamber, I was delighted to hear President Biden also announce that the United States is in favor of this reform.
The world we live in today is a stark, unfortunate contrast of privilege and hardship. For too long, the voices of those marginalized, those left behind, have been drowned out. They constitute the bulk of humanity. These are the voices of the poor, the displaced, the vulnerable. We cannot, in good conscience, leave them behind. They should be at the center of our discussions and our decisions. Africa, in particular, knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity, but we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought.
The fight against poverty, the promotion of human dignity, a steadfast commitment. Despite our progress, poverty remains a significant challenge, with over half of our population living below the poverty line. The Sustainable Development Goals aim to eradicate poverty in all forms by 2030, ensure social protection for the poor and vulnerable, improve the access to essential services. Liberia is dedicated to assessing the levels and the causes of poverty and implementing strategies to reduce it and promote shared prosperity.
The world cannot continue to turn a blind eye on this gross injustice and the continuous violations of international law by the Israeli government. We call on the international community to take immediate and decisive action to reinforce an unconditional ceasefire, to lift the inhuman blockade, and to recommit to a political process that ensures a just and lasting peace based on the two-state solution, thereby restoring the rights, dignity, and future for Palestinian people. In Ukraine, the war now in its third year has inflicted a devastating toll on civilians, destroying homes and critical infrastructure and leaving millions without essential services. The legacy of trauma and displacement will affect generations. We urgently call for an immediate cessation of hostilities, a ceasefire, and adherence to international humanitarian and human rights law.
Those in the continent. Let us know your thoughts on some of the speeches that we got of the African leaders that spoke at the UN General Assembly. Let's go to the Caribbean and end it there. We go to Martinique, where protests erupted this week. France had sent a group of special anti-riot police that has been banned from the country of Martinique, where protesters have gathered despite the government barring demonstrations in parts of the island. The anti-riot police arrived this weekend after a French official said in a statement that protests were forbidden until Monday. The government also issued a curfew. The restrictions came after violent protests broke out on the island last week over the high cost of living, with gunfire injuring at least 6 police officers and 1 civilian. Officials said that the bans were meant to put an end to the violence and damage committed at the gatherings. But the measure was met by defiance by many on the island, with massive peaceful protests breaking out on Saturday night. Videos from local media showed crowds of thousands peacefully walking along highways overnight, banging on drums and waving flags. As protests wound on without violence, the force of French anti-riot police arrived on the island and were staying at a hotel in the country. It wasn't immediately clear on how many were sent. The elite riot police, commonly known as Companies for Republican Security, were banned in the French territory of Martinique following the riots back in December of 1959. The unit had been accused of using disproportionate force against protesters, ending in the deaths of a number of young demonstrators. The force is rarely deployed in French territories in the Caribbean, but was called on during riots and strikes in Guadeloupe back in 2009. Martinique's leaders requested that the forces amid the recent protests in a historic shift for island, and one met with a sharp rejection by some in the territory. Those in Martinique, let us know your thoughts on the anti-riot riot police from France being deployed in the country. Do you feel that this has been blown way out of proportion? Let's go to Haiti, where the transitional sovereignty president had spoke at the UN General Assembly with a speech. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in proclaiming the independence of Haiti in January 1804, General Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the founding father of our homeland, gave human rights a universal character. He began the dismantling of the colonial and slave order, and then human rights ceased just being white man's human rights and became human rights for all men and all women, namely the rights of all humankind. In this regard, and as representative of the Republic of Haiti, and as an official spokesperson for the Haitian people, I must draw the attention of the leaders of the major powers to the dangers are the only ways to guarantee a stable and prosperous future. It is with this vision, this devotion, and the strength given to me by this rich political experience that I am leading the transition, determined to lead Haiti towards peace, security, and participatory democracy through the holding of the National Conference and the renewal of politicians through free, credible, and transparent elections.
Those in Haiti, let us know your thoughts on the president of the transitional government speech at the UN General Assembly. Did you feel that it was fallen on deaf ears? Did you feel like it was much needed? When we come back, we'll have today's African proverb of the week. Don't go anywhere.
New release of the Spring Summer Collection. Visit www.mccadero.com.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the African proverb of the week. And it comes to us from Kikuyu. What's going on, Kikuyu? Eroaku. And it reads, rich people sometimes eat bad food. Once again, rich people sometimes eat bad food. Kikuyu proverb. This is pretty good. How I interpret this is that, not all of us, even the ones that you think that are having the best time of their lives or just don't have any problems, they have problems. It might not be, what you might think, but problems nonetheless. So, always keep that in consideration. Everybody's going through something. There's always stress. Even the person that you think is the least stressed, like me. It was just this weekend that one of my friends was like, we know you're stress-free. Look at the way that you act. And yeah, most of the time I don't have very much stress, but also it doesn't mean that stress never happens to me. It just means that I just have ways to get over it. I hit the gym as much as I can, at least 4 times, sometimes 5 times a week. I love running. There's a special kind of treadmill. We'll get to that another time, but I'm a DJ. I'd say if not every night, every other night, I touch my turntables and I just play music just for me. I put on my headphones. So, I have things that even, that if I'm the most stressed, gets me away from that. So keep that in mind. Everybody's going through something. Let me know your interpretation of the African proverb of the week, as well as your thoughts, views, questions, comments, and concerns on the top stories. Don't forget to hit that like button. Make it your best friend. Hello to the fans of Kush News on Kush Convos TV. I know that we took a brief intermission. Schedule has changed. We are now running to weekend only and a wrap-up of what happened in Africa and the Caribbean. So we do thank you for your appreciation. Thank you for your patience. And thank you. We are not trying to inconvenience any of our viewers, but we have to abide by schedules. So I do want to thank you. If you're still tuning in, we're going to keep on rocking, keep on pushing out weekly updates going on in the Africa and the Caribbean. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. With that being said, I'm Ochanda. We'll see you next time.